It bothers me when people say that Adam and Eve, or more specifically, they'll just say Eve, loosed sin onto the world when they ate the fruit of knowledge of good and evil, because people are glazing over the most important part of the story. The fruit gave them knowledge of good and evil, meaning evil already existed, they just became aware of it. The more I read the story, the more it comes across like Adam and Eve were test subjects in this garden of supposed perfection. They were basically in isolation, and they weren't made aware of the outside world at all. And the outside world had been populated by the people that God made in Genesis 1. I know I sound like a broken record, but I have a theory that God made one batch of humans in Genesis 1, and then the other batch of humans that he made in Genesis 2, that was just Adam and Eve, and they were test subjects to be put in the garden. And the ones in Genesis 1 were just on earth. And so when Adam and Eve ate the fruit and God kicked them out of the garden, he sent them to earth and they just became part of the first batch. This explains why Cain later finds a wife in the land of Nod. She was part of the first batch. So evil already existed. Adam and Eve just became aware of it when they ate the fruit. So they don't deserve any of the blame for any of the shit that happened. They were essentially like toddlers who didn't know any better. So where did sin and evil truly originate from? We could say it happened when Lucifer rebelled, but there's a few issues with that. For one, we don't have the actual story of what went down when he rebelled. Like, it's mentioned in the Bible, but the actual story itself is not in the Bible. So we don't even know if sin or evil existed before Lucifer fell. If anything, I'd argue that it had to have existed before Lucifer fell. Because if he was a perfect being, living in a perfect environment, made by a perfect God, the idea of rebellion wouldn't have even crossed his mind. God wouldn't have even created him with the idea to rebel. Not to mention the fact that it's said that a third of the angels decided to rebel with him. So it's not like Lucifer was just one bad egg. Maybe heaven wasn't all that perfect. And let's not forget, the only reason that we regard Lucifer's rebellion as evil or sinful is because God says so. Because again, we don't have the actual story of what went down. All we have is the one narrator who is God. The same God who later condones slavery and genocide. So I don't know, maybe his idea of evil is not exactly evil, because his idea of good isn't exactly good. So again, I ask, where did evil and sin originate from? It had to come from God, the God who created everything, the God who said himself, I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things in Isaiah 45:7. I'll keep bringing it up. It wasn't Adam and Eve that created sin or evil. It wasn't Lucifer or the devil or whoever. It had to have been God.